The number one biggest mistake I see people make after bariatric surgery is eating shit they shouldn't be fucking eating.
Nobody talks about how confusing food becomes after bariatric surgery.
If you're using food emotionally, surgery does not fix those parts. We don't want to say food addiction's a thing, but we'll call it food noise. Research-wise, grazing is the number one reason people gain weight after surgery. I've also seen many scenarios where a GLP-1 has almost made matters worse. I thought that losing weight was going to fix my life. You're going to be just as miserable with a different number on the scale.
Hey guys, this is Danae. Welcome to the very first episode of the Bariatric Rewrite Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the lead coaches here at the Rewrite, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Shenelle, our fearless leader and CEO.
Yes, how exciting. This is the first time we have ever sat down and recorded together, so who knows what the hell we're going to talk about today.
Oh boy, fun stuff for sure, fun stuff. Well, let's get to it. So nobody talks about how confusing food becomes after bariatric surgery. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think we have to define what gets confusing about food. I think after surgery, if we're continuing to eat the same way we did before surgery, then nothing has changed. And I think that's where the confusion lies. Do I have to change the way I was eating? And the answer is yes. You know, maybe there's a most likely for a person or two, but for a majority of people, it's a solid yes. So how do you eat after surgery? I am a huge preacher and teacher of eating whole foods after surgery. That might not seem like the easiest answer people want to hear, but why I also love to explain to people that we're metabolically sick. We're dealing with a disease, even though obesity hasn't been a disease in, so it's 2026. So it's been a disease for only 13 years. Most of us have been fighting this for a much longer time. So even it takes introduction to us to understand that we have to eat differently. And I think that's what's confusing is the why and the how of the whole thing. And that's what we teach here at the Bariatric Rewrite is making that transition and also explaining why we're making that transition.
Absolutely. And the why behind that, so incredibly important. You've said before, most bariatric patients don't struggle with food. They struggle with what's next. What does that actually mean?
I think they struggle with what's next in life. We all know what to be eating. We know that, protein first and eat your veggies, but putting that whole picture together is where people typically get lost. That's why in our program, we break it down week by week, either over 16 weeks or an entire year, which I think is far more appropriate for the girl who just had surgery or is thinking about having surgery. But the systems at home are the most difficult part. So stress from work, having a lot of kids with different foods than you're going to have, having a husband who eats differently than you are. All of those things have to be addressed, especially if you're using food emotionally. We got to sort all those things out because surgery does not fix those parts of the
surgery does not help that.
No.
Not one bit. So, perfect segue. At what point did you realize the problem wasn't discipline? It was the lack of structure.
After I had my surgery, I think I did a really good job of implementing the structure. And I was talking about that on social media, like how I did things differently. And I saw just such a pushback that clearly wasn't how most people were doing it. Some people were almost offended by this idea, which I was like, well, that's super weird, man. Like I had 80% of my stomach removed and like I really had a pretty firm understanding that things had to change. But I saw that everybody else thought that way. And then when people started to ask me for help, I knew that there was a lot more to this than what I just thought was the way to live after surgery, that it's almost a complete crisis post-op on putting the system together when you get back home from the doctor's office.
Yeah, because they don't outline that for you. The book, the binder doesn't outline any of that.
The binder does like a really good job of like getting you for like through the first couple of months.
Yes.
But it's also like educational overwhelmingness because if you have surgery and you get this binder and we're talking about what the hell you're supposed to be doing at year one, you're not even thinking about year one when you get home.
No.
It's like kind of like watching paint dry on the wall where it's like all of a sudden I'm slowly able to eat more. Oh, now I'm back to eating these certain things again. Like, and we forget all the stuff that we originally sat down and learned in the process because it doesn't seem applicable at the moment that we're given that information.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the biggest mistakes you see people make right after surgery?
I mean, I feel like there's a host I could go on here, but the number one biggest mistake I see people make after bariatric surgery is eating shit they shouldn't be fucking eating. That number one. And I'm talking about people who are going to test the waters. Someone who's super early post-op and is curious. And they explore foods. And sometimes they don't get sick. And then that's a whole other bag of worms. You ate these things thinking they were going to make you sick. Like, I've never once like decided to walk across a busy highway just to see if I could get hit. Like,
No
that's
Frogger?
never
No Frogger for you?
None at all. And so that would be the biggest mistake, is introducing those foods early on. The second, staying on protein shakes far too long, not understanding that you are a baby post-op, and that's why you're having these formulas, essentially, right? And babies come off of formulas, don't they? They eventually go to eating all sorts of foods, just like you should after you have your surgery.
Absolutely. What's something the bariatric community believes that's actually keeping them stuck?
I think the bariatric community is stuck in 1990s and early 2000 diet culture.
Absolutely.
We are stuck in that. As long as it's keto friendly, and I mean, nowadays has added protein, it must be an excellent source. But I really feel like everyone gets gaslit and is kind of seeing it when you're seeing product lines like Pop-Tarts, for example, and Doritos having these added proteins. Like, it reminds me of the gluten craze. Like, when everyone got really all into this gluten thing, and these massive corporations now have gluten-free products, and we're seeing the same thing here. We'll just add protein, and all of a sudden it's going to be a better choice. It wasn't that it was missing protein that was the problem, right? It's a host of other ingredients that are going on the back of those labels. And so I think a lot of people are stuck in diet culture, and I would define diet culture on living on ultra processed foods for the sake of it counting towards a low calorie. I think that's the definition of diet culture. Somebody might say, oh, it's whole foods, that's got to be diet culture. Like, no, dude, that's just like normal eating. Like, that's what your body is made for. It is not made for 7 different skinny syrups that you got from the Ross checkout line in one giant Stanley cup.
Yes. Also, what's the other one? Marshalls.
Yes.
Marshalls, the skinny syrups at Marshalls. There's an entire section dedicated to that. You talk a lot about food noise. How does that show up for your clients?
So food noise is a fun word. I don't think we use this word so predominantly until GLP-1s came out and they've kind of hijacked the marketing on it. But what is food noise? Right? Like, we don't want to say food addiction's a thing, but we'll call it food noise. I think that when you have a pull to have something, despite every inner being of your logic knowing this isn't going to help you out, I think we're starting to talk about addiction. And food noise is most likely an addiction noise. A GLP-1 might hush it down, but you and I have also seen many scenarios where a GLP-1 has almost made matters worse, where now they're not eating anything, and then by the evening they're going to go to the drive-thru just to justify getting something in their system.
1,500 calorie meal at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's not helpful either, right? So I think we define at the Rewrite food noise, not necessarily the food you binge, but we define it as the food that when you have a little bit of it, you can't stop thinking about having more, right? We use the reference of a crumble cookie all the time. If you have a crumble cookie and there's 3 slices sitting there, you cut it into 3s, you're going to have 1 tonight because you're being good, you're going to have 1 tomorrow, and so forth. As soon as you have that 1/3, all you're thinking about is having the other 2 pieces. Nothing like that will happen if I come to you with a bag of bananas, a bunch of raspberries.
You come at me with some broccoli with like some good garlic on it, and I might be thinking about that, but you're right.
Right.
It's not going to talk to me from 3 rooms
Yeah,
over.
and it's also, if it is talking to you 3 rooms away, it ain't going to ruin your goals
No.
at the same time.
Why do traditional apps like MyFitnessPal actually make things worse for bariatric patients?
MyFitnessPal is made for the woman who is losing or trying to lose 20 pounds for the vacation in 3 months.
Fit into that bridesmaid dress.
Yes, exactly. It's made for a very particular type of person, which is great because there's a host of that type of client around, or that type of woman with those set of goals. It's not made for the bariatric journey. So when we made our app, I had to think, what is it that MyFitnessPal doesn't do for me? Right? It first off is complicated when it comes to logging food. So whether you are trying to lose 20 pounds or 200 pounds with the surgery, I think our app is better and faster and more efficient in the tracking department. But if you are bariatric, it gets to follow your journey with you. It makes sense and makes suggestions based on your journey. You can toggle being on the pre-op diet. You can toggle being in the soft food stage and get recommendations based on being in those stages. And MyFitnessPal does not do that. Even the bariatric apps on the market don't do that. This is something so unique in that it was made by a patient, which truly understands it. Because I do think clinicians don't necessarily understand what we think is easy versus what they think is easy.
Absolutely. And MyFitnessPal is not a fan of cottage cheese eggs the same way I am. You've lost over 100 pounds yourself. What were the hardest parts that had nothing to do with food?
I lost 120 pounds with the gastric sleeve 4 years ago now. And I thought that losing weight was going to fix my life. It was going to fix my crappy relationship. It was going to fix the stress at the job. It was going to fix my character defects. Everything about my life was only messy because of my weight. And so I often put fixing these things on until the day I lose weight. Once I get there, then I blah, 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 right?
Yep.
After I had surgery, I realized that my weight gave me more confidence, more health, right? With that clarity, I was able to then go tackle all the other things going on in my life. Mm-hmm. But it didn't fix immediately to my relationships and my hobbies and all that stuff. I had to rewrite my whole life. It's so, for the girl who hasn't had surgery yet, it's so hard to understand.
Oh, 100%.
You're just thinking, man, if I lose 200 pounds, my life will be so much better. And you're right. It's going to be so much fucking better. But you're going to have to cut the bullshit that you're dragging from chapter to chapter. Because that part, that shitty marriage, it can go right with you at your healthy weight. That shitty job can still go right with you to your healthy weight. Those shitty relationships and friendships and toxic shit you hang out in is going to follow you right into that weight. If being a healthy weight gives you the confidence to get rid of it, awesome. But if you take that stuff into the next chapter, you're going to be just as miserable with a different number on the scale.
Absolutely. At what point did you realize this system is broken and something different needs to exist?
When I was on TikTok 7 months post-op, which there is a hierarchy in the bariatric world, just like there's a hierarchy in AA, right? There is a hierarchy. And when you are 7 months post-op and someone's asking for your PayPal to send you $50 for you to coach them, I'm like, oh,
this doesn't fit.
There's something going on here. There's a very missing piece, right? It doesn't matter how far post-op you are, because even in the rewrite, some of our coaches aren't that far out. That girl who had surgery 1 year ago is more relatable to the pre-op girl than I am.
100%.
Right? I can't remember nowadays what the hell that was like. I live vicariously through everyone in our program who's going through it again, but I can't recall it as quick and convenient as they can, And it was just seeing so many people asking for help and not really caring how far post-op I was. That told me that the structure I had created and my conversation about whole foods and food addiction was relevant on a much larger scale than I could have ever imagined.
Oh, 100%. I remember the day I found you on TikTok. Oh, man. I found my surgeon on TikTok. So evidently that's the best place to go for everything bariatric is TikTok, especially at 3 a.m. All right, let's talk about the app. What makes it different from every other tracking app out there?
Our tracking app, Rewrite Lifestyle food tracking app, is so incredibly different than the mainstream one out there because it is made for a bariatric journey. Even the bariatric ones aren't necessarily that friendly for our journey. I wanted something that had the elements of the AI. I found out quickly when we started selling the Recipe Fix, which was an AI prompt that spoke our language, and the amount of feedback we got. People loved it. I knew we were onto something there. Put that in the app. Have something that calls them out, that when they try to log shit is like, are you sure about that, girl? Are we sure about that? We need that kind of reminders because we go back to these habits, or coping mechanisms quick and fast. And none of those apps are going to call you out. MyFitnessPal does not give a shit if you decide to have a 600-calorie drink from Starbucks.
Oh, no. It's like, hey, cool. You're one step closer to hitting your goal.
Exactly. It doesn't tell you, have you thought about this? What are you doing, man? You're starting to experience some regain because you're tracking your food, and this isn't the right thing. And with AI today, you can build such cool features like that. But to do it from someone who had the surgery, I can really go in there and be like, I want to make this exactly what I want and my entire community wants. And you don't even get those sort of conversations with the big boys.
No, not even remotely close. How does the app actually help someone who's sitting there thinking, I don't know what to eat?
If you don't know what to eat and you have our food tracking app, it is game on for you, my friend. All you have to do is snap a photo of what's in your fridge. And it'll help you come up with some ideas. And then you can customize it right there. You can go to the grocery store and you can buy what's on sale. I'm cheap. I want the clearance meat, right? I can put it all
including organ meat.
I can put it all in my cart. I could snap a photo and throw it into the recipe fix on the app and say, hey, what can I do for dinner tonight for a family of 4? Or what can I meal prep with this for the next 3 days? And boom, it will give you an entire plan there. Now I don't have to go to the store with a long ass grocery list. Now I can just work within my means and my budget.
I think my favorite thing is the grocery list, though, because I go, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. This product is going to change my life because I fall for that. And so having a grocery list and then grocery delivery because I'm still that person.
Yes. And if you do grocery delivery, you can upload your receipt
to it. Absolutely.
And then come up with meals there as well.
Yeah, I love when it actually prints out my like grocery list, and I'm like, this is exactly what I need. Yes, this is simplifying my life.
Yes.
Now if the app would just cook for me,
right? That is the missing piece.
Coming up. What happens differently when someone uses the app versus just trying to eat better?
So when you're using the app versus trying to eat better, the app's going to guide you in the eating better area, because if it comes back to what I think is diet culture, which I think is the 90s and the early 2000s, low calorie, sticking to a certain calorie count, and you're healthy, sugar-free, fat-free, all that stuff. This is going to call out that nonsense that doesn't work for the bariatric girl. Like with the surgeries, man, we are on artificial sweeteners from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed because we think that's what we're supposed to be doing. And there's so much research now, especially with sucralose, that says that this might make you hungrier, and especially to people who already kind of struggle with that. Mm-hmm. This app is going to say, girl, don't buy that. That's got sucralose in it. Let's put it away.
Actually, it doesn't just say, hey, don't buy that. It goes, what the fuck are you doing, in all red letters? Does it work if someone cooks everything from scratch or has a busy lifestyle?
It absolutely works for both types of people. Mm-hmm. This app will help the girl who has a busy lifestyle say, what can I make in 5 minutes? And for the lady who is Martha Stewart-ing her life, what can I make for the next 5 hours for X, Y, and Z?
What can I throw in the crock pot?
Exactly. It covers it all.
It absolutely does. Why did you build this specifically for bariatric patients instead of just general weight loss?
Coaching bariatric patients for the last 3 years, and we've had everybody on MyFitnessPal because it has a feature where we've been able to look at their logs. And I saw people making bad choices left and right, and obviously the app's not going to call them out on that, and it is our job as a coach to do it, but what if it could catch them in real time and tell them in that moment, this is not the best choice you could be making? That was one of my biggest reasons for wanting to make this app, but also not everyone can get into our coaching programs. Mm-hmm. What's the next best option? This. And not everybody needs our coaching programs either, right? So what is the great middle solution for that person? And MyFitnessPal is just not made for the bariatric journey, unfortunately. And there's nothing better than creating something from scratch to solve all of those problems. So I was honestly just inspired by watching the chaos on MFP with our client base. And then also there was a lot of hiccups where it didn't work often for Android users, and we ran into all sorts of issues. And despite having, we probably had over 3,000 people in the last couple of years that we've recommended to MyFitnessPal. And we have many times said this, we've had this glitch issue and it was never addressed. With our app, we're not only like here fixing it in real time, but we're also adding on things people are asking for. I wanted to track my poop. Okay, consider it done, right? I want to be able to measure my non-scale victories on a timeline. Consider it done. Like whatever you guys want, you come and tell us. We're listening because we're making it for you guys. Like this is the ultimate dream situation, and no other place will you have that experience on an app.
No, I think MyFitnessPal, what you put in a ticket, they put you in a queue, and you may or may not hear something back in 6 months.
Exactly.
Yep. What's something the app does that people don't expect but ends up being the most valuable?
I think most people don't realize they can track all their food in one space, in one conversation, and that you don't have to go line by line like you do with the other apps. So you can say, hey, I had 100 grams of chicken, a half cup of broccoli, 1 teaspoon of olive oil. I had 7 grapes. You can put it all in one phrase and hit go, and boom.
There it is.
All of it's there, and then you can just hit the button, track it, and log it, and you are good to go. Just speaking to it. You can't do that with any of the other apps.
You can't speak to any of the other apps in general. So that's a huge one. And using natural tone.
Exactly.
Game changer. If someone just got a surgery date today, how would the app guide them step by step?
If you just got a surgery date, you would go into the app, you would tell Lucille you got your surgery date, and then she can take it from there. Lucille's our AI feature that is built off the Recipe Fix, built off 3 years of coaching. One of the things we did to build this entire brain with the AI was we took all of our coaching data and plugged it in there. It knew the struggles and things that we see. And that's what helped us make this thing in not just like fast paced, but also so efficient, really understood what we see on the regular. So once you tell Lucille you've got a surgery date, she can help guide you. You can also tell her what your pre-op diet is because there's no national standard here. So some people have a 2-week diet, some people don't have a diet at all. You can let her know what your plans are and she can make you suggestions based on that. And you can also go in and toggle once you go into the pre-op diet. So all of your recommendations and feedback are aligned with that goal.
Of that. So talking about the intensive program, who is that program actually for?
Yes. Our intensive coaching program is for a bariatric, GLP-1 or food addict who is very well, knows exactly what they need to be doing, but cannot seem to initiate that. Somebody who needs to have their hand held at 9 p.m. on the weekends, who has a lot of stress in their life, who has a lot of chaos in their life, who lacks structure. That is who the intensive program is for.
Hi, that was me. What's the difference between someone who just uses the app versus someone who joins the intensive?
Yeah, there's a big difference. The AI coaching feature in the app, I think, is a good starting place. But having a human experience, and also our intensive has an entire program where we break down every week part of your life and try and put it back together. So you don't get that experience on the app, unfortunately. That experience is in the intensive.
What's the biggest breakthrough people have when they go through the program?
So a couple of fun facts. The biggest breakthrough, there's 2 biggest breakthroughs that happen in our program. Number 1, the average woman who loses 20 pounds over 4 months, completing our program from start to finish, and that's eating whole foods. That's not sugar-free. I'm not super obsessed with the calories. I'm really focused on the quality of the food choices. And the second biggest breakthrough is realizing where they emotionally eat and starting to call it out and starting to make changes on that and dealing with the emotion that they're not wanting to feel instead that they're trying to stuff down with food, having a real conversation about it and ultimately addressing it so it's no longer a reason that we're in the pantry in the middle of the night.
Absolutely. What do you force people to confront when they usually avoid?
Themselves.
100%.
Themselves. We are our biggest problems. People tend to come into the intensive, not everybody, would come in very fluent in victimese. It's everybody else's problem how I ended up here. My surgeon, my husband, my job, my family, my mom from 50 years ago, you name it. There's a whole scorecard that people come in with a blame game. And I love to allow people to have the opportunity to take back a little bit of control. Where do you play a role in these situations? What can we leave at the front door and move on with, right? And what needs to be addressed? Because none of us are binge eating in the middle of the night because we don't know better. We're 100%. Stressed. We're feeling something. We want to change the way we feel. So we're going to go in there. We're going to eat all these things. And now we have this emotion we didn't even want to address. And now we have piled on guilt, shame, and regret. So we've just made our stinky diaper even more stinkier. What if you can just deal with that emotion and then avoid that whole train wreck that comes afterwards?
Absolutely. Why do you take such a direct, no bullshit approach with your clients?
People love it. It's not for everybody. That's for sure. But I am always sometimes surprised how certain people end up here because they're very people I wouldn't expect that the language or the approach. But the feedback is you guys don't sugarcoat shit. I don't want to be sugarcoated anymore. I want the truth. And I think that's the missing piece when it comes to post-op care or even prepping someone for surgery is a honest to God conversation. And people are like, well, I don't want to be offended. I don't want to offend them. I don't want to stigmatize. If I had a cancer diagnosis and I had to go get treatment, I had to have surgery, and you were sitting on a pile of information as my surgeon, you knew that I would be more successful if I stopped eating certain foods, and you didn't share this with me because you thought it was going to hurt my feelings or you thought that I was going to take it too personal, I'd be pissed. Tell me everything. I'm giving up 80% of an organ. Or for some of us, having a new one made. This is a serious surgery. They say it's a serious surgery, then take us serious post-op. Do not give us this bullshit approach that's like, we can't offend them. Just, send them to the dietitian, let the dietitian solve the problem. Like, no, tell me how my life is going to change so that I can be successful when I do this and I do not end up part of the 50% of the population that regains their weight after the surgery.
Absolutely. What habits do you see people finally break when they go through the program?
The biggest habit I see out of people is going to be grazing. Tracking your food, I think, makes grazing a little bit harder because you're like, oh my God, if I'm going to have those, couple of goldfish my kid left out and I got to go track it, and that's annoying, right? We're creating a little bit of friction right there. But research-wise, grazing is the number one reason people gain weight after surgery. And it's eating portions throughout the day of crap food. I'm not talking about the person who's eating 6 times a day, small balanced meals. I am talking about the person who's like, oh, you know what? The kids didn't eat all their mac and cheese. I'm going to finish off the plate. The coworker had cupcakes. I'm just going to have a few bites of this thing and toss the rest away. Like, the person who's just not tracking, eating every couple of hours or maybe hourly, just small bites of what we call slider foods, right? I see that habit change probably the quickest, and partially from logging it, but also being aware of it. Knowing that you've got this habit and what those foods are. When you remove all those foods I just talked about, nobody is really grazing all day on salmon. Like, salmon's not convenient. You have to cook it, right? Like, you're just not going to just eat salmon, just chilling. Maybe if you're a sushi place, but you're just not that's not a
You're not just going to the refrigerator with a fork, a couple of bites of salmon and some green beans.
You're going to put the meal together and you're going to sit down and eat it, But I think grazing comes back to some people wanting to feel this sensation of fullness, which I think is an addict feeling, that I desire to constantly feel full. And addicts, alcoholics, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I did this. I just want to feel something. Something's missing. And I think that grazing pattern, I also think when you look at the coping mechanism, eating addictions, I think that the grazing is just another example of somebody with food addiction and wanting to feel that sensation of fullness from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed.
It's also that hand to mouth, which was really a big thing for me. And it was cashews. Every time I hand a couple of cashews, well, a cup of cashews will blow your fats and your calories out of the water in a heartbeat. So it's every, 2 or 3 of them, but 2 or 3 of them all day long.
Yep.
And the app. I don't want to see that. What kind of results are you seeing from people who actually follow the system?
People who follow the system at our intensive program at the Rewrite, on average, if you've regained weight and you are over a year post-op and you have not had any movement for 2 months, that's the statistics that we have our hands on, we see an average of 21 pounds lost, which is insane because we're not asking them to go to Weight Watchers. We're not asking them to order Nutrisystem and eat space food or to stay on shakes. They're eating whole foods and they're complaining to us about how they're full and they cannot hit their calorie goals that we're asking them to hit.
1,200 calories, that's not very much.
Right.
Well, when you're eating salmon and asparagus, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lot. And so that's the biggest result we see as far as statistics, But I just think people feel more confident in their choices by the time they're done with us. We didn't build the Rewrite out to be a forever program. Like, we have to cut the umbilical cord.
Get rid of the training wheels.
Yeah. And so I'm proud of the fact that we have a lot of people who leave the nest and don't have to come back to the nest. Although the nest is here. The nest is here. If you got to come back, it's still here, because it's not a perfect journey. But I see a lot of girls leave our program and they start living their life and not being obsessed about what's going on their plate.
And I think those are some of my favorite clients is they text us 6 months later with these huge life changes. And I always tell them, we're not changing our phone number. Like, you can still reach out. We're still here. And then we hear from them with these really big, life goals, and non-scale victories. And it's probably my favorite part. What's something your clients say after they finally get it?
I think people recognize that they are emotionally eating. And whether they want to say it's addiction or not, because, addiction's a self-diagnosis, and I'm not here to say that, right? But people are like, oh, my God, because I'm documenting my food, I'm documenting my emotions, it turns out that 2 o'clock, I'm eating all the things in the break room because I'm tired and angry and I hate my job and my boss is this and blah, 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 right? You have to identify where the problem lies because that is what has to be changed.
Yes. If someone feels stuck, overwhelmed, and tired of starting over, what would you tell them?
If you've had surgery and you're experiencing regain, number one, you are part of the 50% of people who have this surgery. So don't feel alone about that number at all. Number two, it can absolutely be reversed. It has to come with some acceptance. It has to come with a big change in the diet, but there's no reason to say it cannot be done.
I think acceptance, that's the big one. Accepting that, because I have 20 pounds of regain at like 13 months when I found you, and that plus 40 pounds. So I guess I'm above average. I kind of like that. If someone's tired of guessing what to eat and wants structure, where should they start?
If you had surgery and you are feeling lost on what to eat, you can start with our food tracking app, the Rewrite Lifestyle. That'll guide you with real coaching on what to be eating after surgery based on what foods you like and any other medical conditions you have, right? And if that's not enough, our intensive is a entire boot up the butt, helping you in real time make those choices on what to be eating after surgery.
What's the first step someone can take today to get back on track?
The number one step to get back on track if you're experiencing regain or you have stalled or you fall off the bandwagon is to download our app, Rewrite Lifestyle. If you can get on the app and start tracking your food and tracking it in a place that understands your bariatric and understands that you might be emotionally eating, you're going to be able to start making some big changes right out of the gate.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the questions we have today. Yeah, thank you so much. We did. But this is a topic that we talk about a lot, so it's pretty easy stuff to answer. So thank you so much for giving me your time, hanging out. I really enjoyed that.
Awesome.